CosmicRadio.TV. Welcome to the fine edition of my so-called 8-Bit Life. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas. Joining me today, my good friend, Micheal Riojas. The only reason I'm speeding up through it is because we had a fuck-up, and I love talking about fuck-ups.
Fuck-ups are fun.
So the reason I stopped the show, and for those who are patrons, will get all the extra footage, and we'll hear it all, and we'll hear it in weird ways.
You hear my rants about
the reason why is for some bizarre reason, I noticed...
Bizarro attacked, sorry.
Well, literally, for some bizarre reason, it immediately switched to, like, stereo.
Really?
Where it was like both of us were coming in on both channels.
That's amazing.
And I saw that happen in the wave pattern. I'm like,
oh, so you noticed it in the wave pattern?
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty amazing. I would never even would have
That's
noticed
why
that.
I picked it up. I was like, something's going wrong.
We explained some stuff though.
We split in channels, and we're supposed to be split. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Why are we both in the same channel?
With the Ultimate Fusion, it's gonna sound okay. If you hear that audio, it's gonna sound like the way Vegeta works in Dragon Ball Z or
Right.
Gogeta, which I'm always impressed by the fact they're able to get that to work.
Yeah.
The timing for that must be a pain in the ass.
So to kind of again recap, especially for those who aren't watching live, Micheal here is one of my good friends. We're both into comic movies and video game stuff. And the reason I had him on this week, is
because you watched Guardians, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Finally watched it maybe like a couple weeks ago, and
What did you think?
I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it a lot.
On a scale of from as good as the original to better.
Before we continue, we will try our best, because it's still fresh, to not spoil anything.
Kurt Russell's in the movie. I'm just that's in the poster.
That was one of the things I was actually really happy for, is that the trailer didn't really...
the second trailer
the trailer
tells you,
gives
though.
away the theme of the movie.
It's okay. The theme of the movie is just like family.
Right, but it gives it away in the trailer, the theme, but that's good enough because you don't know what's going to happen. And I'd heard... I
already knew about chunks of it, so I wasn't too too surprised. And it's only because the nerdy part of my brain knew the characters when I heard their names pop up.
So, can you explain something to me? Because I don't know what this team is.
The thing about space characters, they're partially my blind spot.
So within the movie, there's typically this is not really a spoiler, because I don't take this as a spoiler anymore for Marvel movies. But there are a couple of end scene credits, some humorous, some not.
Yeah, some are just for the fuck of it.
Right. So there's these. So during the movie, there are a series of characters, and I'm being cagey because even I think this is a spoiler of who it is.
Are you talking about the other Ravagers?
Yes.
Right.
And they say at the end, well, now that we're all together, let's go do X.
Well, somebody had to explain this to me.
Okay.
Because, like I said, for the space characters...
We could say what team that...
The space characters are are my blind spot when it comes to Marvel.
Okay.
But luckily, we know a lot of other nerdy friends who know this.
Sure.
Things. And so somebody finally explained it to me, because I asked them about it. And he told me they're the original Guardians of the Galaxy, comic book-wise.
Oh,
like the entire team.
Okay.
Because out of the entire Guardians of the Galaxy, the original team, Yondu is the only one who was an original member of the original comic book team.
Oh, okay.
Like everyone else were like afterwards.
We're sort of when they rebooted it once or twice.
When they kept making different members. In fact, I finally read the original first appearance of Groot, and I mean like the original first appearance of Groot. That shit is weird because it's an old 50s comic. You know how like old 1950s comics when it would be about an alien attacking. It was like a Twilight Zone episode basically.
Right.
Because what it is this meteor hits randomly. And this guy, this is the funniest thing about this comic because it's really fucking weird. The entire, the main character of the comic isn't Groot. It's this random scientist guy. And all his wife does is talk shit about him because he's not manly, quote unquote. But he's like a scientist or whatever. And she's like, I wish you were manly. And he's like, God damn it. And so Groot attacks because he was this meteorite or whatever that fell down. And he absorbs all the trees. And he turns into this giant tree monster that speaks perfect English, by the way. Like, he doesn't just go, I am Groot. It's like, no, he's like, I am Groot from the planet X, and I'm here to take over, so go fuck yourselves. And so the scientist is like, well, fuck, I need to I want to prove that I can beat Groot. And the wife just keeps talking shit about this dude like every 20 seconds. Like, you're not manly like those other dudes.
Blah, 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 blah.
And so that's what makes it weird, because it's like really hard to read because of that.
That's probably.
And so he's like, I figured out a way to defeat Groot, because they can't shoot him or anything. Like, they shoot at him with like all these weapons.
Right,
and
nothing
works. And he defeats him by like just launching termites at him, or not launching at him. He just puts termites next to him, and then they fucking eat him. And so he dies, and then they're just like, and then the wife's like, I love you now because you beat the space monster, so you're manly in different ways. I'm like, what the fuck?
Hey, look, whatever works.
And so I looked up more about what happened with Groot, and was like, apparently it just sort of evolved into the I am Groot character.
I mean, I think every comic book character.
Some of them start off as these weird, like, 1950s horror movies.
Well, like
Ant-Man was like that.
Well, because like the thing is that like if you think about comic books, and you think about the era that they came in, like I think every character's sort of when they began.
A lot of their origin stories are these weird, like sci-fi stories.
What I'm saying
in like old pulp
that's the thing.
Things.
I think every comic book character's origin story reflects more of that era.
Oh no, guaranteed.
You know, like for example.
But the thing that people don't think about when it comes to the the superheroes that are out now is they don't realize that a lot of the most popular ones
they've been around.
Started off like a weird 1950s pulp
story. Because ultimately,
that's what it was.
Because ultimately, what will happen is
like Ant-Man is like a perfect example.
Well, again, the idea being that like. 50s writer says like we got to make a new comic because we got to sell.
A lot of them were just one-shot characters that just became.
We got to sell the pulp.
Yeah, they just became a thing. Like,
right, and then
like Spider-Man was one of those characters.
Well, because ultimately what happens is that somebody, a new writer comes in,
that kind of thing.
Well, because a new writer comes in, like in the 90s or 2000s or whatever, and is tasked to write something.
Well, the thing that's different to me about the most popular characters from Marvel compared to the most popular characters from DC is that when they made the ones from DC, they wanted them to have a shelf life right away. Whereas with the Marvel ones, they just sort of threw things at the screen and they're like, yeah, if that doesn't work, then that's all it is.
That's
again, and then they just sort of became a huge thing all of a sudden.
That's anything, but ultimately,
well, it's not just
I get what you're saying.
You get what I'm saying, though, right?
DC had
like when DC made Batman, they made Batman to be a long-lasting character right away.
Well, because
when they made Superman was going to be the main character the whole time.
Well, because I don't care.
But when they wrote Spider-Man, they're like, okay, here's the story. If you don't like it, that's cool. But this is what we wanted to make real quick. And then it became a thing because people liked it.
Well, I mean,
like it's the opposite.
I guess I'm saying is that there's like, so if we flash back to like, I mean, the early beginnings of
it's like okay, it's literally like the way movies are now,
right?
Where Marvel was just making movies that they wanted to make, and DC was making franchises essentially. Like that's the difference between the two originally.
Well, I think it's more of the
originally.
Fact, I think it's that, and again,
they're now both basically the same.
Well, because DC, when they began their life as Detective Comics, and I say life meaning like,
well, they started their life as Action Comics.
Action Comics, right? Sorry.
And then Detective Comics just sort of became their thing.
But either way, they've always been.
And Marvel, I forgot what Marvel's name was originally. It wasn't Marvel that much. I remember.
But like they've all, I mean, and all the comics have been this way, but Action Comics even more so. And if you think about all the different mediums,
I would kill for an original Action Comics #1. By the way,
right? But
absolutely kill for
their life,
literally impossible to get.
Their life began in the era of serialized content.
Well, no one wanted. Okay, the funny thing about Action Comics is that no one wanted to print Superman originally. Like they took it to every possible newspaper that they could. They're like, we want to make this character, and they're like, no, that's dumb. Let's not do that. And then some dude was just like, hey, I know you guys don't like no serial thing like what you're mentioning wants to do that. I wanted to make something. I want to make a comic book. Like comic books weren't a thing.
Right.
The guy basically was like, I want to make instead of just a serial thing, I want to like print a bunch of pages and make it like a tiny book and then sell that.
Right, but that's still when I say
and then they were like, oh, well, let's do that instead. And then he became like the most popular fucking superhero for like.
But I'm saying like
40 years.
When I say serialized content, I mean the idea that there was just newspaper
No, I
stuff.
totally know
Right.
I know. I'm totally get what you're saying.
Right.
It's just that I'm saying that my story was just that no one originally wanted.
Right, for sure.
Ironically, the most popular superhero in like 50
But
years.
then we go, then there's
or the superhero for the longest time.
and also if you think about the idea of superhero stories, and I mean this in like not what comic books are now. And
The
not
thing
where
is,
now.
the thing is, cartoons have the same thing going on with that.
Well, not even cartoons. Like I'm talking about like
um,
radio stuff. People forget about like how big radio was.
Oh no, radio was huge.
But that's like one of the things we got like the green. We got like
kryptonite is an invention of the radio.
right. Yeah.
The same with a number of different things.
Yeah, but
involving Superman.
if you think about things like
I think not flight.
there's a
I remember.
whole
No, flight was an invention of the cartoon. Actually,
was a freaking radio.
Green Hornet was.
Green Hornet
so
too,
was
yeah.
so was the Shadow.
Yeah.
There's another one. I can't remember.
They're all
the name of it.
and all
it's not
these,
Doc Savage. Doc Savage, I think, was a book. Right.
But the point, the ultimate part being is that that's the era that they came in from, and so they had the idea of making this sort of serialized content in that you have this character that you have this arch for, that you have like different things, and then they kind of launched in radio and stuff like that. Whereas I think Marvel came in near the end of that. I mean, in the
they
grand
came out,
scheme of things,
they basically started really doing their thing around, I think, like mid '60s.
yeah,
Although they were already around before that point.
right.
Because the funny thing about Marvel is that people don't know that their first two characters wasn't like Captain America or something.
Right.
It was Namor and the Human Torch.
Exactly.
And people keep thinking, oh, Johnny Storm didn't exist. No, it wasn't Johnny Storm. He was an android.
Right.
Who could set himself on fire.
right.
And then they got into fights with him and Namor because they were both like at different odds sometimes.
Exactly.
But they were both like the heroes of their stories, which is like hysterical to me. That neither one of them have a movie that's good.
That's look. We leave that.
I think it's astonishing. I don't remember that. I can't remember. Okay, I can't remember the name of what Marvel used to be, and it frustrates.
It's okay.
me.
Well,
I know it, but I don't remember. Off the top of my
ultimate
head.
point being is that when they came, DC had already locked down how to do serialized content, and that was what they were doing.
Yeah,
and
DC knew what they were doing.
and so ultimately, for when
like whole villains would just die because they weren't going to come back because
they
they're
were
serialized.
because they were the guys that after a certain point.
Like they killed Joker, like I think like 3 times before they were finally like, oh, let's make continuity now.
Well, because Marvel were the guys that after a certain point that they couldn't think of any other ways of giving powers to superhero.
No, Marvel. Yeah, what Marvel's claim to fame was that DC wasn't not just the superpower thing, but
the whole like whatever the issues were at the time.
It wasn't even just that. It was that you could relate to them,
right? But that's the thing.
And it wasn't even just because of the issues; it's because they felt normal.
They were humans first.
They were humans first, superheroes
second. Right.
And especially Spider-Man. Like that's the reason Spider-Man is known as the world's greatest superhero. Like in Marvel, is because he is without a doubt the most relatable superhero in existence.
He's the eternal Holden Caulfield to a certain degree.
Well, he's also just the everyman. Period.
Right.
Because like. He got sick like a normal person. He could get the flu.
Yeah, of course.
He could fucking he got every possible thing a normal human being could have. He had normal people problems. He had to worry about his rent. He had to worry about his. He would worry about like his personal life, like kind of thing. Superman never had to worry about his personal life. He was like if he disappeared for like 3 days, people were like, "Oh, Clark's back," and then they never fucking questioned it.
Clark, where'd you go?
Clark, where'd you go? I went to
Aruba,
Kansas,
Jamaica.
Hung out with my parents for 3 days, and that's why you didn't find out about it. Like that's cool. Like no one questioned where Clark Kent went. Bruce Wayne was rich, so no one gave a fuck what Bruce Wayne was up to. Bruce, what were you doing? That's fucking like a billion supermodels. I don't fucking have to worry about shit.
If only they would have done that.
Or meanwhile, in the middle of the night, he was shooting vampires with a pistol because 1940s Batman didn't give a fuck about guns. He loved guns. Guns were his fucking jam.
That's sort of what I think. What I'm trying to say is that.
That's right. Batman used to love guns.
Is that
he covered everything in guns. He didn't have batarangs originally.
No.
He just had a 9mm that.
But this is what I'm trying to say is that every era is a thing. Like in other words,
Superman threw a guy out a window because he was beating his wife.
I'm gonna throw an idea.
That's a thing that happened in Action Comics #1.
I'm gonna throw a Marvel idea at you, and I'm curious
if it's a thing,
and wonder if you have what your thoughts are going to be.
Okay, go for it.
How do you think they're going to pull Cable into this universe, into this era of comic book movies?
You mean like just the comic book movie stuff?
Well, because Cable is
Cable's supposed to be in Deadpool.
Well, because
so the thing about bringing him in.
Before we continue, hold on. Before you go on there, I want to state this point, especially for those who are not comic people. Cable is probably the most, in my opinion, the best and worst example of 90s comic books.
He is the most
90s of characters in the 90s comics.
He is one of those things about the 90s that survived that I'm both glad and think is hysterical that survived the 90s.
Because he is such a 90s thing.
Because when Cable first showed up, he showed up covered in every possible pouch and had guns that were like 5 times his size.
He had muscles on muscles
and he had
on
muscles, and those muscles had pouches, and those pouches had muscles, and every single one of those pouches had a gun that was like 3 times somebody's size.
Like, his origins, like, I travel through time. I'm like,
he's like, I'm a guy. He's like,
I'm like a time police.
I'm from the future, who was destined to defeat Apocalypse, who is the son of Cyclops and a clone of Jean Grey, not actual Jean Grey, a clone of Jean Grey.
Like all he needs is like,
and I was fucking infected with a technovirus that gives me a badass metal arm, and I don't know what my powers are half the time. But I came from the future to save you.
All he needed was an amazing fucking.
But I'm also in charge. I'm also in charge of a ragtime group of mutants that are 90s as fuck.
Yes.
And also Deadpool's there at some point.
So here's the question.
And he was 90s as fuck.
Side thing.
Goddamn. Rob Liefeld was the 90s.
But that's
Rob
the point.
Liefeld was the 90s incarnate.
That's what I'm trying to pitch.
When he couldn't draw feet to save his life. To save his life.
This is what I'm trying to say is
Rob Liefeld.
Here's a question before a side question.
They still give Rob Liefeld work.
What would be the background music for like, who are you gonna get to
the
score
best
that?
explanation?
Are you gonna get
the best explanation
are you gonna just
for
like get
Cable.
Dirty Vegas? Like who do you get to score like that? Like, what old electronica band do you tap?
You just EDM the fuck out of them. That's all you need to do.
Do you have to update?
You don't even need like more EDM. You don't even need to. You don't even need to make new music. You just find the most EDM-ish 90s fucking thing in existence and then throw it at him and it'll probably match.
Because that's the question I have, is like, he is such this epitome of the 90s.
He's so fucking 90s.
That's yeah.
I love him, but he's so goddamn 90s.
But he is so like
they've made him pretty serious as a character now.
You can't though.
But like, no, you can. It's really hard because
right.
because he already has a really 90s backstory. But
he is like the we both usually watch Rooster's.
When people say a Mary Sue, Cable is the ultimate Mary Sue of the 90s. Because Rob Liefeld was like, I want to write a character who is so important in the future that he has Captain America's shield or whatever because he's so important in the future. Because he's so awesome that he has to go into the past to hang out with all of Marvel's greatest heroes to save the future because he's so fucking important.
That's what I love about
fuck you, Cable.
That's why I love him. So this is why what I'm trying to ultimately say is that every character,
when you make a character who's destined to kill another character,
or if you're
then
rebooting
you're fucking
a character,
Mary suing the shit out of
or if you're rebooting a character,
or if you're rebooting
a character, you reboot them into their era. And sometimes I think it does it works.
You can't reboot Cable into any era.
That's
that isn't 90s.
That's what I'm trying to get, because you can have fun with like I like the way they rebooted Captain America. The idea of either in the movies, but it's based off of
you're talking about
series,
the way
the Stranger in a Strange Land. Like, I've always liked that concept.
There's a great comic actually about that where it was I think it was before the movie came out actually. It was what if Captain America woke up in like I think the 2010s or something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that. And it's really good, and it's actually like that was actually, yeah, it was amazing because it was one of those things that the thing about Captain America is you can wake him up at any point in time in history and he can still be the same character.
Right, and that's the kind of idea.
Whereas with, like you were saying, Cable, if you grab Cable from the future and throw him at any point in history, he's still fucking 90s as shit.
That's the point.
Because of his design.
This is what I'm trying to get at.
And the thing is, you can't reboot Cable's design.
Right.
Because then he's not Cable
This
anymore.
is exactly where I have the problem, because everyone's like, oh yeah, Cable's going to be in the movie. I'm like, that sounds cool. And then I started thinking about it.
But the thing is, the way you bring him into now is that you just go full 90s with it. Because nostalgia is really in right now.
I guess, but
especially with 90s kids.
It's just like
they're gonna eat that shit up.
It's just
I'm a 90s kid, and I'm pretty sure
I can
I'd
see
eat
the
that
comedy.
shit up.
Don't get me wrong. You know,
I think that's why they want him though.
Having a self-aware character will
Cable
help
and
it a
Deadpool
bit.
comics are hysterical.
Well, because you have a because Deadpool is self-aware of what he is, but he's also updated to what he.
Also, you have Josh Brolin being Cable is the best fucking decision.
I mean, don't get me
I
wrong, I love Josh Brolin as an actor.
No, I love Josh Brolin, and that's why he's such a great choice for this. Because Josh Brolin is really good at being self-aware at the joke.
Well, Josh Brolin is just a damn good actor.
He's fantastic,
and it's funny because like he began his life as like the older brother in Goonies.
Yeah, he was the older brother. Okay, for many people, Josh Brolin is still the older brother in Goonies.
Right.
Whereas for me, he is George W. Bush in W.
Well, he's also like one of the best roles in
and he's in so
No
many
Country
good
for Old
movies.
Men.
Yeah, and he's also great in No Country for Old Men. He's in so many great movies and so many bad movies.
He's a phenomenal actor.
But he's the best part in every single
That's
one
why
of the movies.
I am glad he's getting work. It's less about him, less about the actor. It's just more about the idea, and I guess that's why you can put him in Deadpool, because you can play off that thing. But
that's why I'm saying he's such a great idea.
I'm just not thinking in my head like,
how do you bring?
Well, because now you
bring Cable.
Well, how do you? I mean, because we're gonna hit a point in all of these.
You're waiting for the bubble to burst, is what you're
Not
saying.
the bubble per se, because the bubble will burst, and eventually we're gonna have all this.
I'm amazed it hasn't yet. It's been like 10 years.
Well, because we're gonna hit a point in these movies cycles, and every only because you can only have so many. And proven completely by previous iterations, you can only have so many Batman movies. In that, after a certain point, it'll just because again, you compare Tim Burton's Batman.
The thing about that, I feel though, is that,
and then there's Batman and Robin.
The thing about that I feel is that the only reason that happened was because all four movies or not all four, but. The 1 and 2 are basically the same consistency.
Yes.
Whereas 3 and 4 have no fucking idea what they wanted to be.
Right, and again, but
and that's why that bubble burst, because you watch Batman and Robin and you're like, what the fuck? How did you get to this point?
Yeah. For sure.
Whereas, Marvel's been really... I think that's one of the reasons the bubble hasn't burst yet with Marvel, because Marvel's been consistent the entire time.
I guess what I'm saying is...
like, there's no Batman and Robin in the middle of Marvel.
I guess what I'm saying is not the bubble bursting now. It's we're going to hit a point in time where
you're out of, like, villains or something?
We're out of characters to do something with.
I don't think you could, with some of these characters.
I guess my question is this. We're going to hit a point where we're going to have to tap the 90s again.
The thing is, I thought we had already got to the point where we were running out of characters, and then they made Doctor Strange a good movie, and then they made Ant-Man a good movie.
I guess that's a good point.
And, because the thing about Iron Man that people don't remember, because, okay... all of you kids, or like, there's no kids. There's no kids listening to this probably, but anyone who started getting in the comics after Iron Man does not remember that before that, Iron Man for many comic book readers was a C-list motherfucker, because no one gave a fuck about Iron Man after a while. Like, he was just some dude after a while for some people.
Some dude.
That's the thing. Like, when at the time, if you would have walked up to somebody before that movie came out, and you're like, name superheroes, like right now, they would have said Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, and maybe Captain America. Maybe. Because those are very recognizable people. To Marvel even to Marvel people at the time, Iron Man was just like at that point. No one gave a fuck about the dude anymore. He was just Iron Man.
I
no
am
one
Iron
cared.
Man.
Like he was just like, I'm a rich dude in a suit, and they were like,
and this is before Ozzy existed and made is not related to the comic book song at all. But
yeah, it's not. Well, the thing was that song, like even before like 2008, like what I mean is like even from 2005,
right? No one knew.
Like no one really cared who Iron Man was. Like people were just writing their comics still, going through their emotions, kind of thing. And then Iron Man became like the biggest Marvel character ever, and
because
now
I think
now he has all the movie like famousness.
Well, because I think now, and especially of
no, Iron Man was still considered Tony Stark's bodyguard before the movies were a thing.
Well, I think as now we're in an era of the tech rock star.
That's the thing people forget too,
right? But I'm saying like we as a human society is in the era of the tech rock star. Not saying that in the idea that we have, in the news, we have Elon Musk's, we've had in the past the Steve Jobs.
Musk's.
Musk. We have a lot of tech startup people. And so in our mindset.
There's literally a show that is extremely popular right now.
Yeah,
that's
Silicon
about
Valley.
A startup. Yeah,
Silicon Valley. But the point being
also,
is.
TJ Miller leaving, that makes me sad.
Happens. But I mean, we're in that era where these people are now, are larger than life people.
Which. If you would have asked anyone in like the 90s if that was going to be a thing, no one would have.
Right, no one would have gone. No one was in the mindset that.
Even the 80s, no one would have.
Well, because like you didn't have like Steve Jobs in the 90s wasn't Steve Jobs now, or wasn't what he would be even.
Yeah, he was alive. Ha! Just kidding.
This is the wrong household to be.
He deserved to die.
This is the wrong house of people you can't tell, but there's a Mac over there. This is the wrong household to be.
He totally deserved to die though for his dumbness.
No, he took. I mean.
Yes, he totally deserved it.
I realize
he caught his cancer at the best possible time that every modern medicine could have cured his ass.
Yes,
and then he was like, homeopathic medicine. It's going to save my ass. And then all he did was eat apples, and then he died because he's an idiot.
We just don't talk ill.
You remember, kids? Steve Jobs was an idiot.
We just don't talk.
He was a great salesman. That's it.
We just don't talk ill of the dead, actually. But
I talk ill of Steve Jobs because fuck that guy. He was a douche. Apparently.
Yeah, allegedly. I mean,
not even allegedly. Everyone who knew him admits that.
It's funny because, at the end of the day,
there's a whole movie literally devoted to him being a dick.
this was funny because like I've had bosses, and I won't say who, and weren't current jobs, who are great, who are. I'm being cagey because of
Johnny
reasons.
Cagey. Yeah, I can't talk about my job.
No, it's not even my current job, but it's exactly previous job. I'll tell you off air why.
I'm curious now.
Who I've known personally as great, awesome, and caring human beings, but when they're in the thick of things, when they're making a product, when they're trying to...
He wasn't making his products, though.
Well, when I say make a product, and this is sort of where
all he did was yell at people.
Well, this is sort of what happened.
And then deny the fact that his daughter was his daughter for like 20 years. Yeah, you can't defend that part, can you?
I'm not trying to defend it. What I'm trying to ultimately say is that
97% it's mine. Well, there's 3% margin of error.
For good or for good or for bad, for ill or for evil. Sometimes when you, and again, this is not to say he was a good, because again, I guess I'm trying.
I always knew he was a douche.
No, I guess what I'm trying to say is that
why are we talking about Steve Jobs still? This is
because this leads into Tony Stark, and I think this is why Tony Stark is an interesting character overall, and I think why he works now when he didn't work prior.
Yeah. That's true.
Steve Jobs is a very much like a lot of people. If you were to break down a lot of your heroes' lives, or people who have done X, Y, or Z thing.
Talking about real people, right?
Real people.
Right.
Not everything is rosy, and everybody has.
I don't expect it to be rosy.
But I guess
there's some extremes that like I just can't.
No, but I think like what ultimately I'm trying to say is that why I think Jobs, a lot of people. Because
I will never deny what he's done for technology.
I mean, because again, I won't say that he's not a dick. I won't say that he wasn't a dick either.
I'll never say he's a good guy.
But at the same time, the argument is, and again, this is not
the man stone cold lied to like his closest people.
Yeah, I guess it's
Like,
again.
Wozniak's story still breaks my heart.
I don't get me wrong. I love Woz way more than I love Jobs. And in the end of the day, I have a Linux server. My Pi is running Linux. Obviously, we're streaming on a PC machine. We're recording the audio on a Mac. I'm OS and hardware agnostic. I've always been, and always will
I'm
be.
Android as fuck.
But it's not like Google does is all hunky dory good thing.
I've never said that either.
But the point,
but I'm not allowed to say it either way,
right?
Because they pay me mostly.
But that being said,
They're great. Don't fire me.
That being said, when it comes to Jobs, the thing that I think intrigues a lot of people is the
well, there's a lot of depth to him on accident because of it.
well, it's the idea of having a crazy.
If Bill Gates is Reed Richards, Steve Jobs was Dr. Doom.
I would say, actually, it's funny. I would say if Bill Gates is Reed Richards, I would say Steve is more Tony. Only because, and this is where with the difference.
Well,
what I'm saying is that like if the idea of Bill Gates, and even he wasn't the best either.
Oh hell no.
The idea of Bill Gates is that I do this for science. I do this for tech, whereas the way I've always used Tony Stark, and I think why he's such an appealing character, is because there's a lot of gray to him. In that you see this Elon Musk character, Steve Jobs character, this super genius, and all he is just a complete and utter asshole at the beginning. Like, taking pictures, taking selfies, woo, I'm drinking. And then he goes to this transformation of
An alcoholic.
Right.
At one point.
Right, exactly. Then he goes to this transformation of trying to figure out, what his place is in the world. And I think that, I'm not saying that Jobs was like that, but the idea behind, if you take Tony Stark and Jobs, both of them in their own strange way tried to achieve perfection. I'm not saying that they hit it, and I'm not saying that everything it was, but the idea being that...
Notice how I've said nothing this entire time.
Right. Well, because I'm basically cutting off the comments at the past as quickly as I can.
Well, the thing at the end of the day...
And when I say achieve perfection, I mean the idea of if you ever created something and you're never happy with it, there are some people who never accept that they have to release something.
There's nothing wrong.
And that's sort of where I view Jobs as. And again, that's not an easy person to work with in any capacity.
Well, the thing about Jobs that I've never really liked is that he wasn't the actual genius behind everything. He was just the guy who's really good at convincing you that he was.
Well, that's all you like. You start to realize.
The thing is, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying it's just that I don't enjoy the fact that some people think that he built many of these things.
I think
he built the house that Apple's in, but he didn't actually build.
Well, here's the next argument too. When it comes to a movie, we always attribute to the director, but there's script writers, there's editors, there's grips, and
I've never said any of those things.
But I'm saying but people do that. People, for example,
yeah, but it's easier.
For example, you're happy about Wonder Woman.
There's more to that though than there is to Jobs doing it.
Well, let's rewind it back
because
again.
The difference between the two is that the director is still in part of the process, whereas Jobs was more like the guy it was more like the producer though.
Yeah, but we also attribute good movies to good producers too. Like in other words, you will get if for example,
but that's what I'm saying.
I know. I'll throw a point at your way that you've had earlier today. We're talking about Wonder Woman, and I don't know if that was on the stream or if
that wasn't on the stream because
we're talking about it, and you were happy. And again,
I don't think we did. I don't know.
We talked about it for a bit, but I don't know if it was on this part of it.
You were checking the computer.
I don't know if it was on this episode or the hidden content, but the point being, at one point we're talking about Wonder Woman, how it's getting good reviews, and you were excited. And this is not to say anything ill of the man because everything that's went through.
What we're saying is Zack Snyder's not part of the process.
But you're happy about that. And the point being is
you had way too much creative control is the problem.
But that's the question. The question goes all these sort of things of like.
Are you saying that Steve Jobs had creative control of things?
I don't know. When I'm trying to,
he kind of did though.
When I'm trying to,
not as much as most people give him credit for though.
What I'm trying to argue is that's
why are we still arguing about this?
Well, because this is all leading into everything else.
I don't even know what we're leading to anymore.
I don't either.
We lost track of what we were leading because we got into an argument about Steve Jobs because I don't like him.
Well, because he did.
And for the record, I still don't like him. Nothing will change that unless Steve Jobs comes back from the dead.
We ultimately got in this
and then tells me about a bunch of different things. Let's not talk about Steve Jobs anymore.
Right. The ultimate point I'm trying to make is that people will always put credit on some of the to end that thread and get back to the main thread of Tony Stark. Will always sort of put credit on whoever the front man is.
I guess.
In other words,
I guess.
which I guess is also the Marvel, which actually does lead into I think the Marvel's claim to fame in the movies as of late, and sort of what kicked it all off was the front man of Iron Man, and the idea of it being
that movie should never have worked originally, and I'm amazed it did.
Well, because again, and again,
like, no one expected that movie to. Well,
because at that point, the actor, what's his name?
Robert Downey Jr. at that time was blackballed by everybody in Hollywood.
Well, because he was just getting off of like his crazy heroin binge.
Well, not even just heroin, like his everything binge.
Right. And like that, and I think
no one wanted to hire them.
And I think that's why he related to that character a lot. And I think I
think that's why he works for that character.
And I think that's ultimately why he works in this era, because he is the idea of this man that has it all, this tech genius. We're in the era of those things being real and being stuff. And then now we're adding a superhero because, again,
I think that's the thing about Iron Man, like I was mentioning before,
that's why I never liked Superman, because Superman's so unrelatable to this era.
Well, I still don't think that's true.
I think you can't. I think you can pitch it now in a certain. I think I'm saying now in the movies I'm pitching it that way.
The thing is, I always feel like Superman is timeless, but people don't understand why he is. But I'm not going to go into that because that's going to be a conversation that will last like an hour.
No worries. We'll say that for the post show. But yeah, I definitely think
I can literally argue about that character all day. Literally.
To get back
because
to
I have done it
to not go round about it anymore. To get back on some sort of track, I think
Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is a good movie.
It is.
That's where we're at.
It's a great movie.
That's what all of that meant, ironically enough.
It all meant
we didn't even talk about the movie. Do you realize that?
That's good because I didn't want to talk about it because I don't want to spoil the movie.
You never told me what you thought about the movie, though.
I liked it. I told you that.
Yeah, no, you didn't. You said, well, I don't want to spoil anything.
Because ultimately I said I liked it. I didn't want to spoil anything because I wanted to ask.
Literally, but you never said. Well, you never really told me what you thought, other than I liked it.
Because everything.
But I wanted to know a little more about what you liked. I want to know, like, if you liked the story or the script. Like, you don't have to go into the story. Just tell me if you like.
Well, that's why
certain
I asked,
aspects of it.
So the aspects I enjoyed about it, and this is what's I think my take on Guardians 2 can be summed up really quickly. In that,
is it Brandy, you're a fine girl?
No,
life you would be.
No,
I've been listening to that song for like a week straight.
I've been
by the way,
to because of Too Mellow on Twitter, the guy that composed the soundtrack for Real Memories and a couple of things. He found out the other song in there that I'm like, yeah, the Wham Bam Shambling.
Wham Bam Shambling.
I think Guardians. This is my thought that won't spoil anything. I think is a great example of a good sequel movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's
absolutely.
And that's because everything else is less about the movie and more about the emotions it brought up. And
the
I think
thing about that movie,
that's
like the thing without spoiling the movie that will explain what I think about that specific statement is that what it does that most sequels don't do is that it builds on what it's already built. It builds on the relationships it's already built.
Right.
And it adds more relationships to that story that's work even further that add to that those relationships that I think that most sequels fail to do.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, because the comedy's still great, but the thing is, sequels, sometimes their comedy's still great, but their stories suffer because of it. Their characters suffer because of it, usually. But everyone stayed true to what they were, to the way they were written originally, and were built up from that point, instead of, like, digressing somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, say the way, that's a good example, like, a bad sequel that does that.
Bad sequel.
The Blues Brothers 2000. Perfect example. Like, they go through all of this shit.
Really? Hold on. That's your
it's a terrible. It's not. Okay.
That's your deep pull.
The reason for it is because
didn't Lionel Richie Lionel Richie.
I want to say James Brown.
No, James Brown. Who was it made a cameo in that? Was it James Brown or was it Lionel Richie?
There's a lot of people who make cameos.
Little Richard made a cameo in that movie, didn't he?
I think so.
I think Little Richard made a cameo in that one.
The thing is, like, the thing about both Blues Brothers movies, a lot of people make cameos in that movie.
I know, but I think that. But
the thing about Blues Brothers 2000,
when Little Richard was making movies with fucking.
Is that people? They're not people, but like all of this like little story stuff from the first one is just all of a sudden gone.
Right.
Like they spend the entire first movie saving this orphanage or whatever. And then like it gets torn down anyways in the sequel. And then there's no going around the fact that John Belushi's dead kind of thing.
Right, of course.
And so there's a lot of stuff about that sequel that fails because the characters aren't their characters anymore. Because the thing about the first movie is that Elwood Blues is this very silent kind of dude. And then all of a sudden, he's like the most talkative motherfucker in Blues Brothers 2000.
Well, because it's funny
because they had to do it,
right? Well,
but the thing is, like, a lot of sequels fail to build on what they've already built because of it. Like the Batman movies is another good example of that. 'Cause there's all this build that Tim Burton was doing, and then like all of a sudden it's just nothing. Like it gets brought up maybe like once or twice as maybe like an in-joke in 3 and 4 kind of thing, but they don't connect to any of their shit.
What came out first, Dragnet or Ghostbusters?
Dragnet.
Dragnet did?
Dragnet did.
Not the show, but the movie.
The movie, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
The only reason I bring that up is that...
Because the movie came out in...
Because Blues Brothers came out well before...
83?
Yeah, because Blues Brothers came out well before...
yeah, Blues Brothers came out in
well before
82.
Ghostbusters, right. And not to say
83.
that Aykroyd didn't do a whole lot of stuff in SNL. I mean, he's done some of the most iconic roles in SNL.
Oh, he was fantastic in SNL.
But by Blues Brothers and even Dragnet, like he's basically the same type of character.
Oh hell no, he's not the same.
I'm saying like type in terms
you mean
of,
like the way they are,
right?
Yeah, they're very stoic,
very stoic, very
he's not quiet though in Dragnet though,
right.
but he's the way he speaks is very. Stoic.
He's like just the facts man. Like he's very much just
the facts. Man, yeah.
Whereas Aykroyd
he played Joe Friday in that one,
right? Whereas in Aykroyd in Ghostbusters. He's
very energetic.
He's very energetic.
He's very sweet.
Right. He's the talkative one.
He's very talkative. He's sweet, and that's the thing about him compared to the other characters.
Egon, played by what's his name?
Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis. Like he was a straight man in all those movies.
Yeah, he played the straight man.
Right, and that was his role. Was like
he was the thing about Ramis is that he wasn't always specifically the straight man.
Yeah,
like he's kind of more like Ray in Stripes than he is like Egon, basically.
Right, and that's sort of the thing is that
was he in Meatballs? Was he in the first?
Yeah, I think
Meatballs?
he's in Meatballs too. Yeah,
I think so. It's been a long time since I've seen
But I mean,
Meatballs.
the point is like Aykroyd by the time we got to Blues Brothers 2000 was a different kind of actor.
Yeah, by that point he'd already done a bunch of different weird
he's already
comedies.
I mean, and that was the era
he was
of
more
like,
energetic.
Wasn't that also the era of just like rebooting every SNL thing? Like that was what brought us the Coneheads movie too.
I think that's what I think Coneheads was made before that.
When was Pat made?
Pat was made in the 2000s.
Okay,
I think if I remember.
I'm trying to remember what
one was Ladies Man made.
I had to look at that because there's
late 90s, I think.
Because like that was like
because Night at the Roxbury was made in like 97.
That was such a weird era of like.
There was a lot of SNL movies at the time.
Right.
Like Superstar was another one. A lot of them.
I mean, you can argue Blues
about
Brothers.
90% of Blues Brothers totally was one, but it was like way before any of that.
Oh no, that's why I'm saying like that's why you can argue that. But
the thing is,
there's a hot minute where
if you had to make a list of like them from good to bad. Bad starts pretty quickly.
Oh yeah,
because good is like the top of good, of course, is the Blues Brothers, and then maybe you can argue Night at the Roxbury.
Maybe
and then immediately it just goes downhill.
Oh yeah, no, like
I like Ladies Man enough, but that I haven't seen it in so long. It probably is really bad.
I enjoy Coneheads, but just because it's such a bizarre movie.
Actually, you know what? I think you actually could argue Coneheads.
Yeah,
I think you could.
I enjoy it, but it gets into some strange places.
But it gets so fucking weird so quickly.
Oh yeah, it's bizarre even for that concept.
Even for that type of. Yeah,
and I think that's why because like Pat's horrible.
Pat was really bad. People don't even remember that was a movie.
That there's, I remember that's a movie, and I remember
Superstar wasn't great either.
No, again, that's interesting. God, that was
Ladies Man wasn't that bad though.
That was for a hot minute that we had to make.
Yeah, SNL was just making movies left and right for a while.
Like a hot minute. It was just like all these like bullshit stuff.
And then they just stopped one day.
Because they were all bad.
That's not even because they're all... I don't think it's because they're all bad. I think they ran out of skits they wanted to make movies out of.
Yeah, because that sort of thing. You have to sort of... When you do it...
Did they ever make any more?
No. They may have made...
I could have sworn they made something. No. Oh, wait, no, that's not technically...
Because we're at a point now where SNL...
Because Lonely Island isn't technically an SNL skit, right?
It's
because they made a movie.
It's an SNL digital.
So
but
does that movie count?
No,
then,
I wouldn't count it. I wouldn't count it.
Never Stop Popping or whatever.
And I think the only reason I say I wouldn't count.
I haven't seen that movie yet.
The only reason I wouldn't count it is like we're at an era now, and we were there before, but we're at there now even more so than ever. Which is why when people sign up for SNL, they get a 7-year contract. To prevent this kind of bullshit.
Do they really?
Oh yeah, they signed up for a 7-year contract because of like Eddie Murphy's and stuff like that now. I heard about that somewhere.
I'm not surprised though, because a lot of people would just leave.
Right, and so because of that, we're in an era now where SNL stars will be way more known
I don't even
almost
think that's
after
true,
the
though.
fact. Well, I mean, well, remember that they're a part of SNL, but like for example, you wouldn't.
Oh, you mean like when after they make movies, though, is what you're saying?
Right, have to make like that's in other words, yes, Tracy Morgan was part of SNL, but you don't think of Tracy Morgan as an SNL.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
know, or
I still think Will Ferrell that way.
right, but even I don't even think of Will Ferrell that way anymore.
I totally still think of that way. Still to this day.
you don't there's
Him,
only
Mike Myers, David Spade. I still think.
I honestly
that way.
forget about Myers being an SNL alum
really?
until you reminded me right now. I actually forgot about that.
Myers,
Because I forgot David Spade was too.
I grew up. I
grew up that era too.
I grew up on that era, but not only that, but they reran it so often on Comedy Central that a lot of it's just burned into my brain.
I mean, I grew up that era too, but I
like
forgot
Adam
about
Sandler,
half the stuff.
same. Phil Hartman, Norm Macdonald.
It's so funny, Phil.
Rob Schneider of all people.
It's so funny. I don't associate Phil Hartman,
That's surprising
with
though.
SNL.
That is actually really
Like,
surprising.
for me,
Is it news radio?
it's news radio, and the movie roles really, and Simpsons.
House Guest. Do you remember House Guest?
I think I do.
I actually really like.
Actually,
that movie.
remember like him in Small Soldiers.
That was his last movie.
Yeah, sadly.
Because in the credits they're like, the credits has
for Phil.
That's how I found out he died. By the way,
Really? I knew he had died.
Well, the thing was, as
prior
a
to
kid,
that.
I didn't know there was no way to know that he just died all of a
Oh,
sudden.
I knew that. I saw the story.
I discovered the story afterwards because when I got older, I was so curious as to what happened, and then E was showing showing a special that was a series of surprising celebrity deaths. I think was the name of it, something like that.
And then Phil Hartman came up.
And Phil Hartman popped up, and then they go into the entire story. I'm like, man. And then I was speechless because I didn't
You
know
didn't know for that
any
many
of it.
years. Yeah, no,
And
I knew for
was
a
like,
while.
what the fuck?
I knew for a while
And
at that
then,
point.
yeah, and then there was the it was like a countdown of like the 100 best SNL moments. I think was what it's called.
Yeah.
And I think the most heartbreaking, besides it was the Phil Hartman and Chris Farley leaving one, because that one was really sad because of what happened with both of them.
Right.
One of the ones that I thought was really depressing was a skit from the original SNL, which was John Belushi being the last survivor of the cast skit, where like he's at a graveyard and like everybody's dead except for him.
Oh my god.
And it's like, he's in this old man makeup.
Oh fuck.
And he's just like, I did it, and I survived, like, and none of them did or whatever. And he's
that's
and he's like,
that's haunting.
and it's like really fucking creepy because
because of what happened. Because what we know.
what we know now, and they're talking about they're like it's heartbreaking because it's the closest you get to seeing John Belushi old, kind of thing, and like it's really sad because the exact opposite was true. He was the first of them to go.
Because Belushi also was like one of the. I think Belushi. Well, I think that whole cast, that cast in general, was one of the first casts of SNL. I mean, I guess they were the first.
They were the first cast of SNL. Bill Murray was not part of them originally, though.
Right.
Most people think he was, but he wasn't.
Well, because like
He replaced Chevy Chase,
right, because that cast.
and then he got into a fight with him.
Yeah, well, because that cast overall, like, defined the 80s and 90s.
Oh, absolutely.
And
The
even some of
70s,
that, like
80s.
70s, 80s, and 90s. Not just of SNL, but like.
People forget about the 80s SNL.
Well, because people forget about like.
People forget that Robert Downey Jr. was there.
Yeah.
Chris Rock was there, and like a series of other people that no one gives a fuck about.
Yeah. No,
Was John Lovitz in that?
Yeah, Lovitz was during that era too. Like Lovitz came in
Something like
during Adam Sandler era.
No, but I'm trying to remember the cast that's known as, like, at the time was known as the worst cast,
Which was
because that was the Chris Rock and Robert Downey Jr. era. But I don't remember who else was part of that.
I don't think Lovitz eventually.
Because no one remembers that era specifically because it was known as the worst fucking era.
I think after that's when Lovitz came in.
No, it wasn't Chris Rock. It was somebody else. I think.
Tim
I think it
Meadows?
was.
Tim Meadows
Tim Meadows was part of, like fuck.
Tim Meadows. Yeah, it's okay. We'll
I'm gonna look it up now because now I gotta fucking find out.
Well, to make it funny then.
Hold on. Okay, Google. 80s SNL cast.
No, stop that, dude. Stop it. Let's make it funnier. You know what to ask.
Wait,
him.
no, it wasn't even them.
It's okay.
Okay, Google. Worst SNL cast.
There you go. That's
Sorry, I should
the
remember
funny
that.
lead in right
Yeah,
there.
because it wasn't giving me. Here they are.
That's the lead in right there.
It was also the Jay Moore era.
Okay.
I forgot Jay Moore was
Who
in
does
SNL.
Google say is the worst era of SNL?
Okay, Victoria Jackson.
Victoria Jackson's fucking hilarious.
Well, not during that time frame.
I know.
that wasn't the problem. Wasn't that people weren't.
It's just the bad writing.
It was just that for some reason that time
happens.
frame, none of them could make their shit work. So they have Victoria Jackson, Jim Belushi, Jay Moore, Ellen Cleghorn.
Jim has been.
Colin Quinn was for part of it apparently.
Oh, that's right. Colin Quinn did like the
Charles
nightly
Rocket.
news thing, bullshit stuff.
Brian Doyle Murray apparently was part of it at one point.
I don't know.
Actually, no. This list is bad, but some of those guys were part of it though.
That's okay. Look, everything happened.
But yeah, it was the Jay Moore, the Jay Moore, Chris Rock era, and Robert Downey Jr. was part of that too.
That's okay. I believe you. You're not that, but we're almost at the hour mark here, which is great. We've been talking about SNL and comic books all night, but there's one thing we do have to cover.
Here it is, season 11. Joan Cusack, Nora Dunn, Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Michael Hall.
Joan or John?
Joan.
Okay.
John Lovitz, Dennis Miller, Randy Quaid,
Yeah.
Terry Sweeney, Denitra Vance. This is who I forgot. Damon Wayans was one of them. He was the one that was part of it. He left, so they kicked him off super early.
You know what's so funny about Damon Wayans? What's the show that you associate him with? Let's see.
In Living Color.
Yeah, same here.
Absolutely.
That's such a funny thing about like that show. That also spawned a couple of bullshit, a couple of good and
Jim Carrey was still James Carrey when he was on that show.
That's right, because that spawned a whole bunch of shit too.
Because like a lot of those
good
dudes,
shit and awesome shit. Like it spawned one of my all time favorite movies of all.
Is it I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker?
That is one of them. The other one is way more better though.
Way more better. What I'm not sure.
Because that spawned the Wayans brothers.
Which one is
which
the one
then
you're
spawned
thinking
the
of?
amazing
Because there's a lot of movies they made.
So because Major Payne was also part of that.
Yeah, I
Living Color.
guess it would be.
I guess a sketch.
Oh yeah, it was, wasn't it?
I'd like to say, didn't they make a Homie the Clown movie? Maybe I'm not mistaken.
I want to say they did, but I don't think they did.
But for me,
I can't think of that one. Blankman was
no,
another movie.
That's the thing. It spawned the Wayans brothers as a thing.
Yeah, the Wayans brothers.
and then they made
like most of
they
them.
made two of my favorite movies of all time, which is Blankman and Don't Be a Menace in South Central.
That's another good one. And Damon Wayans' son is doing really well, I think, for himself now.
Because both of
The dude looks just like him.
yeah, sounds about right.
It's like he cloned him. Like, you've seen him, right? Damon Wayans Jr. That motherfucker looks just like his dad.
But,
absolutely, and he's just as fucking funny.
But to kind of end this whole podcast, we got to end it with something relevant.
What was the older brother's name? The oldest? Because he's not doing anything.
There's Marlon, there's Damon, and then there's
Marlon, Damon, Sean, and then there's the oldest one.
I forget the other Wayans.
The oldest one is the one who like directed movies and shit, and he was in all the action movies, and he's the one who made I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
I had to look.
I want to say he's Sean. I don't.
I'll look it up.
No, he's
later.
not Sean.
We'll look it up later.
I'll look
Anyways,
it up later.
Last thing we got to talk about because we're almost out of time. We got to do this really quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Because E3 is upon us.
E3 is coming,
and you're going to be joining me post.
They're making They're having a brutal legend panel,
and you're going to join me.
I'm very interested in that.
Just already as a teaser, you won't join me next week, but you'll join me the week of E3, which is June 14th.
Yes. The 14th.
So before that happens,
June 14th-ish.
You're gonna be able to do one thing right here, right now.
Is it like predict?
You're gonna predict one big, completely thing to happen at E3 this year.
Like just like off the top of my head, or are you asking me a question?
Off the top of your head. This is your prediction already.
They're gonna show Shenmue 3.
Okay.
They have to show Shenmue 3 at this point.
Sounds about.
There's no way they are.
If my Kickstarter has been any recent example,
because they haven't shown anything like period, and it's been so long that we had a podcast where we talked about when they first announced it.
Yeah.
So they have to show something at some point because it's been quite some time.
I'm going to say that my big E3 prediction is Square Enix is going to have a very, very, very well polished, playable section of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Okay, it was either going to be that or Final Fantasy 7 that you're going to
They
say.
have a solid, actual playable, actual.
They pushed it back. They pushed both
I
of
know.
those back again. Which
They will continue to push them back.
Sucks, but
that's what happens.
But I don't fucking remember the story of any of those games
don't
at this
even
point.
care.
All I know is that
I care
Hercules
more
was
about
there,
Kingdom Hearts 3 than I care
and
about
Hades
fucking
was still
7.
played by James Woods, and I think that's pretty cool.
But yeah, I believe that Square will do that.
Actually, that's not a bad prediction though.
No.
But I would add that maybe a Final Fantasy 7 one though.
Probably
Like a chunk of it, just like
again,
most
just
basic
a
demo.
playable fucking chunk, and that's because it's so. I have never. I'm interested in Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm definitely not interested in 7.
I'm
remake.
actually not all that interested in the 7 remake anymore.
I never
I
was
was at first.
I wasn't.
And now
at,
I'm just like I
I wasn't at all. I wasn't because when it happened, I was like, oh, cool. Like you heard we talked about this like in one of our previous podcasts years ago, years around that time. I was like, oh, they had to pull that pin. It's gotten that bad because we hadn't had 15 out yet.
Yeah, they had to pull the Final Fantasy
7 pin.
They had the break in case of emergency.
Right,
Final
in
Fantasy
case
7
of emergency,
which has been like people keep thinking they were gonna break.
Yeah.
For like years.
In case of emergency,
and they almost did like one time, and then they're like, no, it's just Final Fantasy 7 for PS4.
It's like
normal one. They're like, oh well, fuck that.
It's like the stockholders are angry. Quick, put this spiky blonde hair wig on and walk.
Final Fantasy 7 movie.
We will just walk you. We will just film you record. Walking through a fucking Midgar set.
Do you know when the remakes of Crash Bandicoot come out?
I think this year. I think that's the.
Well, I think it's like next month, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. I need to pre-order that.
Where?
It's because I want it real bad. It's not because it's not gonna be. It's not because it's gonna be hard to find. Yeah. I really want it.
No, yeah, but it's gonna. But yeah.
Before we go, Injustice 2 is really good.
That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, I really like it.
I'm
just gonna throw that out there.
We'll talk more about games in the post show, but that's it for this episode. Michael, always a goddamn pleasure to have you on.
It's great.
Even we talk about whatever the fuck. And
sometimes you come thinking other things. Other times, sorry, that was a joke that popped in my head in the middle after I said.
That's okay. If people want to hear you talk more about your comic book rants and why it is that Tony
I'm not
Stark
sure
is
where
better
you
than
can
Cable.
find me nowadays because I haven't really been doing anything.
Well, you're on Twitter somewhere.
I don't even. Fuck, I don't.
You
know
have a
last
Twitter
time I
at
used
least.
Twitter. I have a Twitter. I think it's at Michael X Riojas. I think
It is Michael X Riojas. You're also on Facebook as well.
I did a tweet. I'm not going to say where I am on Facebook. I'm just not giving you that.
It's okay.
You can still find me based on what I said before that, though.
Right.
Ironically enough.
And occasionally you.
And sometimes I'm here. Occasionally I used to do my friend's YouTube thing, but
right.
But
even then, sometimes you magically appear on somebody else's channel.
Oh, One of Us?
Yeah,
you're
occasionally on that too.
Well, it's been a while, but I might appear again on oneofus.net, but you never know.
Right. You're also sometimes on Rage Select in terms of like the Ragecast.
I hang out with the Rage Select people.
Yeah. That's all stuff.
He owes me a favor now because of it. I can actually be on a video if I wanted to now.
He owes
me a favor.
These are all things that are part of.
One of these days, I might end up on Rage Select.
All
I gotta do is call in a favor.
That's all you see.
But the problem is, I don't want to play any games with Jeff because he's gonna want to take over the controller.
Well, of course you can find.
And I won't be able to talk at the same time.
Well, of course you can find. We'll get into that soon. Well, of course you can find me. I'm at Vincent404. The other Twitters. If you want to catch previous podcasts, you can to our website.
Ooh, I just realized a game I could probably ask him to play with me. It won't be for a while now, though.
Well, going back to the spiel, if you want to catch, that's okay. It's totally fine. This has always been a stream of consciousness.
Leroy Jenkins.
Of course, you can follow, catch previous podcasts at our website, CosmicRadio.TV /8BitLife. There you'll find links to show notes, our Twitter account, which is also at 8BitLife Podcast. And of course, if you've got some money left on over, head over to patreon.com /8BitLife and help the show become bigger, better, and more awesomer. So that is it for today. As we tune in next time, I'll talk another geek busting completely and utterly random. Bye, people.